have you heard about this feral hogs being an invasive species? Sometimes they're called like wild boars or swines, but then it's like this interesting article on Wired that they wrote back in 2023 about this giant story about how these feral hogs are an invasive species. They're just like destroying crops in flat lands or just destroying the landscapes. I think it was like much more of a problem in the Texas area at the time, in certain areas like Austin or Houston. And it actually makes you think, what are the actual solutions that they're addressing with this problem? And as Americans would actually solve any problem, which is use guns. But in this case, it's
That's
like
classic. It's the American way, man.
yeah. In this case, it would be like with helicopter guns, because this is a real business. There aren't really that many businesses really tackling the problem. So like, I guess the local government, they just decided to pull down the regulation on like what you are able to do against these hogs. And then they kind of like created this, it's called a de-infestation permit. So once you have like, as a business, you have this permit, you're pretty much able to essentially operate as a business to address the issue of this wild boar infestation. Usually it's like by killing. So this business is like pretty unique, where like they created an experience to literally get people to fly on a helicopter with them, equipped it with machine guns, and also you're able to gun down these feral hogs or wild boars.
Tell me you got a video of this.
I think there might be a lot of videos on this, and I just don't want us to get shadow banned on YouTube. So like maybe the viewers themselves can actually just research on their own time. But it's interesting that they're charging between $4,000 to $6,000 per person for this experience. And then I'm thinking, okay, what is the anti-trend of this? Because like when you think about going on a helicopter and just gunning these boars down, there must be like some animal advocates that are against this. And I can think of like a decent bit of demographic in 2025 that actually might want a different solution to this. So then I came across this story. Essentially, the story is this. This South Korean grandpa, I think he was like an empty nester, and he didn't really have like anyone to see him, like most seniors in that age that just like feel pretty lonely in general. But then this wild boar baby that he found on the street needed help. I think he just kind of adopted this wild boar on the street. And then because it's a wild boar, it grew up to 600 pounds. So sometimes he actually gets on the wild boar and ride it around while he's doing his chores and errands. And it's actually interesting because when I saw the imagery of this, I'm just like, wait, why aren't more people doing that, which is wild boar riding? So you can ride a horse, but why not a boar? So this comes back into like this interesting case, which is addressing the problem of wild boars infesting a land, or like if it's not a protected animal, or there's less regulation for an area like Texas, for example. Why not just make this into a business of a ranch, where instead of a ranch where you ride horses across a landscape, you can create a wild boar riding experience. It's pretty much just like a step-by-step process on creating a ranch, but just this experience, because therapy horse riding experiences exist pretty much everywhere because like they're common cattle. But for a place like Houston, Texas, you just need to piece out the logistics of what's legal, and then kind of like propose these into whether if it's like your insurers, or if you're just like more scrappy, you would just like test it out at first in a smaller scale. I think this would work really well to an experienced animal trainer, or like a farm or a rancher that maybe they're used to train cattle for all their lives. And maybe if they would like to take on a challenge of figuring out how to domesticate a wild boar to just like train them on giving people rides, then I think like it would be a really interesting experience. That's really just a monopoly of a business to them if you figure out this how to train a wild boar to essentially give people rides.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's really the perfect idea for somebody who is like basically a Joe Exotic type who's just looking to live and breathe wild boars. And yeah, it's definitely something that I think it could really end up being like a really beautiful experience though, especially when you mentioned the word ranch to me. It kind of just made me start to think about like these haciendas in Mexico. I mean, come on, like for example, look at these places that they've got. Mexico tourism market is absolutely booming right now as there's actually quite a few people who are looking to, not really travel to the United States anymore. So Mexico is just like continuing to become like the North American destination year round. So it's kind of surprising and also unsurprising because of that. When you look at apartments in Tulum, they're like maybe $100,000, maybe less, to get like a one bedroom there, and you can Airbnb them out for basically the same price as that same size condo in Toronto. So just do the math on that. I mean, like that's a very quick payback period because of this tourism boom that's happening right now. So real estate prices will not be this low for a long time. So these haciendas, I think you'd be able to find these things for $1 million to $2 million, and that's going to be a beautiful place to create an actual retreat where you could have like a very holistic, beautiful experience that could be developed into maybe it could be a charitable organization or some type of socially responsible corporation. I guess if whichever you prefer is up your alley, but I think that this is something that would actually speak to people, and it could also become a really, really cool tourist destination. I think that's a really fun one.
I agree. I think like the most immediate action could literally be, instead of like investing in a hacienda for like the plot of land, you could literally test this by creating these pop-up retreat packages and figure out that the regulation is simple enough for you to provide these like boar riding experiences, and then maybe like you just go visit one of the haciendas and figure out with the general manager, and then just find specialists that might be like an expert trainer. Maybe like you actually do find like a Joe Exotic type that's just like really good at training wild boars.
Always, it's the best to get external minds, like get a third party on it, right?
Yeah. And if you literally make that entire package, you could probably just charge that experience within the $5,000 range, full package experience. Then at that point, you can actually create some of these like discount partnerships with these haciendas in like low traffic tourism seasons and create this community of like boar riding. And then I'll probably like create a decent bit of content about boar riding, maybe like a lot of educational. This is all feelings, no research. But I feel that there's probably endless amount of content about horse riding, but like just not enough content about boar riding at all.
Yeah, there's a gap in the market for sure.
There's probably no boar riding content creator out there.
Because my feelings are saying the same thing.
Yeah, so I think to pursue my dream to become the Joe Exotic of wild boar riding in Texas or Mexico, this is the path I will have to take.
Yeah, I would also say like this is a framework that could be applied to really anything. Just like think about it this way. This is kind of a fast track to owning a resort in Mexico. But you're buying a hacienda and turning it into a tourist destination. That genuinely might be one of the easier things to raise money for as an investor, to just sort of say the numbers on like, oh yeah, like I'm starting this resort. It's going to be a situation where I need to buy and staff a $1 to $2 million property. Raising investors for that is actually going to be easier because it's a real estate backed play. So like your investors are going to feel safe in the longevity of it. And also when you need to get loans up front, they're going to have that collateral that they're going to feel safe attaching to. So even if you don't have the money for this, if you just like know a lot of people, you could just do this and then own a resort in Mexico, a beautiful hacienda. I think this is an idea that basically anybody could run with. I really hope somebody does this. Please email if so.
I think my business brain is like actually sparking a lot based on the ecosystem of this idea, because I view this not as just like one business that's just about like board riding experiences. Because if you're a hacienda owner right now listening to this, you might think that, oh, what's stopping other haciendas to compete in the market against me? I would say, well, there's not going to be that many wild boar domestication or like trainers out there. So why not create a training business, a wild boar training business on top of the experience business? But at the same time, wild boars are deemed as invasive species. So why not create a castration business as well, like a vet business that's specialized in castrating these wild boars?
Well, if you're building a sanctuary, then naturally you would be doing all of
Yeah.
these things. Like
But
I
then we
think
would
I
also
think that
welcome
really
other
is.
competitors to have their own wild boar roster,
Hmm.
either for rent or like to buy our domesticated wild boars that will give people rides safely.
Yeah, the rideable aspect is critical for
Yeah.
sure. That like you gotta stay true to that man from Korea.
Essentially, you would own the entire monopoly of like the wild boar riding experience if you start early enough.
Okay, yo, I want to jump into my idea.